Hey, Neil and Christina's classes. This is going to be video 2 of our feedback robot. And we're going to actually add some functionality to these buttons so that when we click them, it does specific things. So I think probably Neil and Shazia and Christina talked to you maybe about JavaScript being the language that we use to add interactions with these buttons. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be linking you guys to something that we've been using called our cheat sheet. Oop, I want to make a new tab, not a new window, so let me open up my cheat sheet here. Cheat sheet 2020. And I'll link you directly to it here. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding the functionality to our web page. And what you'll notice about this language, similar to HTML and CSS, is it's going to be code lines that run in order. And in order to run successfully, we'll have to make sure that we get the grammar and the spelling correct. 95% of the errors you're going to encounter are grammar or spelling mistakes. So to figure this out, what we're going to do is we're going to start off by just alerting out to the user, welcome to our feedback robot app. So to do that, you can just copy and paste this line of code right here, which is welcome to my robot app, to my feedback robot app. And now when you go to your page and you refresh it, it's actually going to run your JavaScript. So we get a pop-up window. And this project will be working all through pop-ups. In this project, we'll be working more with sounds, where when we press things, it plays sounds. So what we're going to do next is, I want you guys to make sure that you didn't delete this line of code, because if you delete this line of code, your JavaScript file is no longer linked. So if you did delete it, make sure it reappears. Lastly, this JavaScript line of code has to appear after you create all of the other elements. Because pretty soon we're going to make it so that instead of just popping something up, it will pop something up when we click the button. And that means the button has to be created before this. So what we're going to do is we're going to add to each of these an ID. And the reason why is we're going to want something to happen when we click this one. So I'll call that button 1. We'll add an ID to this one for button 2. We'll add an ID for this one for button 3. And I'm going to leave the ID here as mean, because we've already set it. And rather than use these IDs to style, because we've already got the styling right, we're going to use these IDs to make it so that the JavaScript works. So after this general announcement, let's make announcements that run when we click the buttons. Whenever you put 2 slashes here, it means that this line of text doesn't run as code. The lines of text that don't have 2 slashes, this is actually a specific spelling alert. And then this needs to be in double quotes. We need to have matching parentheses, and we need to have the semicolon for the computer to understand this, because this is in computer language. So the first step is going to be, in order to interact with the buttons, we need to select the buttons from the page. So we're going to go to our cheat sheet, and to select the buttons from the page, we're going to use this one right here. I'm going to select all 4 buttons. So the way that you select them is you're going to use the CSS selector that you would use if you wanted to style these things. So we can see that if we want to style just the first button, we could use the ID of button 1. In CSS, for ID, we use hashtag. So when we select it here, it'll be hashtag button 1. And then we have to say, give it a variable name. When we want to reference this button in our code, we'll call it button 1. I'll always make my IDs and my IDs and my variable names match. This one we're going to select button 2, so hashtag button 2. And we'll make that equal to the variable button 2. Button 3, hashtag button 3, and the last one is a little bit unique here. This one is hashtag mean, because the ID was mean, and we'll just call this mean. So now what we'd like to do is we'd like to add functionality to these buttons so that when we click this button, a message pops up that's related to this button. It's really easy to do this with JavaScript, actually. This feature, when you click on something, it's an event that happens on your web page. There are many types of events. So what we're going to do is we're going to add event listeners to each of the buttons. And what that will mean is that each of the buttons are listening and waiting for something to happen, clicks, in order to do stuff. So again, we're going to go to our cheat sheet here, and we're going to use our selection here. To add an event listener, we just use this code. Make sure you grab from line 33 to line 36, like this. Copy and paste. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to say the element we want to add our first functionality to is going to be the first button. So now when we say button 1, it's going to go, okay, button 1 was this guy, hashtag button 1. So we'll add an event to this guy. The event type for all of these is going to be a click event. And then down here, press tab and you type your procedure here. And whenever button 1 is clicked, all of this code will run. So we're going to alert out, good job. Oops, good job. And now we get the main alert from here. And we press OK. And then when we click good job, we get the good job alert. If we want to make a similar one for button 2, we can just copy and paste this code and we can do button 2, click events, and this time we'll alert out a great job. And now when we click this, we get great. Oh no, we got good job. We have to change that. Oh, I changed it. It didn't save it. Hey, refresh. Great job. Awesome. Good job. Awesome. And I'm going to leave you the last 2 buttons to add this functionality to. So this is going to lead us really well into this project here, which when we click these, instead of popping something out, it will make a dog sound like arf, arf, or something funky when we click this one, like some music. And this should be really fun because you'll be able to put some of your custom music and sounds into the project. So to review, in this project, we learned 3 different types of JavaScript functionality. We learned how to make a pop-up, we learned how to select elements on the page, and then we learned how to add event listeners, meaning that the web page is listening for us to click the element we specified. You'll see me do this occasionally in videos, so let me say I make a mistake. A lot of the time, students will copy and paste things from the cheat sheet, and they'll forget to change something. So in the cheat sheet, you'll see that this says element first. You'll do element.addEventListener. You'll be like, okay, I forgot to change this. Now what you can see here is if you go, sorry, I used the shortcut, View, Developer, JavaScript Console. When I press refresh, I actually get an error on my page. And it says that this word element is not defined. And it will tell me that this is happening in line 17 of my script.js file. So I'll go over here and I'll say, okay, line 17, script.js, element is not defined. Oh, I probably have the wrong word. That's supposed to be button 2. Once I fix this and I refresh it, button 2 begins to work again. Now, this is the easiest type of error to fix. The hardest type of error to fix is one that fails silently. So a big common error in my class was a lot of times students would put a capital C for click. This event doesn't exist, and it also doesn't cause an error. So you'll notice now when I refresh my page, I don't get any errors. But when I click 2, nothing's happening. So make sure that you always use a lowercase letter for your click event. Also, another common error in our class is not only will students sometimes leave out letters if they type these things from scratch, but they'll also sometimes forget that this word has to be capitalized as JavaScript expects. So the first letter is lowercase, and each new word, event and listener, have capital letters. This is called Camelcase, and it's how JavaScript will format things in general. You can see that once again here with the capital S. Lastly, If you forget to copy and paste these closing parentheses, that will also cause you an error. Because similar to math class, you always need to have an opening and closing parenthesis. So this squiggly one needs to have a matching squiggly one, and this open one here needs to have a matching open one here. And you can see that REPL will actually help me with that, where it highlights matching pairs and boxes. Okay, so please try to finish up and program button 3 and mean so that you can have a working robot feedback app. Also, change the styling of this. Make the background a different gradient. Change this grade to a better color. Maybe put a border on this thing. Maybe a hover effect. Make it look cool. You guys are better at that than I am.